Welcome to the second installment of the Rain Race podcast. Today we're going to be recapping this year's Rolex 24 at Daytona. We're going to be talking about Fernando Alonso in his 2018-2019 WEC ride. And lastly, we're going to be talking about Bathurst 12-hour predictions. I'm Chris Aurelio. This is Rain Race. Let's go. Welcome to episode 2 of the Rain Race podcast. I am joined here with Kyle Cuthbertson, if you'd like to introduce himself.
What's up?
And we're going to be starting off here today with a quick Rolex 24 review. Obviously, the Rolex 24 was this past weekend. And if you're wondering why this is going up on a Thursday, I believe this will be going up on Thursday, it's because earlier in the week I was sick and couldn't really, come together and record this. So, you're getting it late this week, so that's really all I can say on that matter. But obviously, Rolex 24, like I said, this past week. And we had a pretty interesting race, to say the least. Kyle, if you'd like to start us off here on what you thought about this whole race.
Obviously, well, like everyone's opinions, really, it had a lot of good action. It had some good battles in it. It didn't have the battle for the finish that we wanted, though. But when you look over the whole thing, it really was an endurance race, which is what the Rolex has kind of been missing for the last couple of years with its cautions every 5 laps, it seems, and just jumbling up the field every 5 seconds. So this year with only 4 cautions, it felt like a proper endurance race where the guy who made the least amount of mistakes really won the race, because you're not really being helped by cautions helping you to catch up. So the 5 car ended up being the winner, ended up being the only guy, I believe, to not blow a tire in the prototype category.
Yeah, I mean, in prototype, you really had a race of attrition. I think it seemed more than it actually was, because honestly, we didn't have too many retirements in the race. The biggest thing of all was the tire issues. I mean, that was a really big factor in the race, who could manage, obviously, the tire blowouts. And, the explanation for it, we're still looking for a really clear idea on what caused all of it. I think we have a little bit of data to go with why it all happened, but, that was really, I think, the key strategy with that race was who could manage the car over 24 hours. Because, I mean, we can talk about pace all day if we want, but even the United Autosports Ligiers, they really did have the pace to contend up front, and they were contending up front until they both had issues. So, I mean, that's what it all came down to, I think, in prototype.
Yeah, well, I mean, the P2s obviously had a small disadvantage to the rest. The Acura's and the Cadillacs really looked like the stars of the show. The Cadillacs still had the acceleration, and the Acura's had the top speed, so that's going to be a fun battle throughout the season. Just kind of slide that in there. But, the fact that Wayne Taylor had so many blowouts, I think it came to either 5 or 7. I've heard 2 numbers on Twitter. They had 5 or 7 blowouts, and that was why they retired. The fact that they retired because they had so many blowouts, that's how you know there was a huge problem. And like we said, one prototype, I guess, did not have an issue, and that's how it came down. I mean, talking pace, the Cadillacs, I mean, they had him beat. The 5 car, he did lead all day. Another thing is engine issues for the Cadillacs too. That's the thing I forgot too. The 31 and the 5 at the end of the race had issues, and I believe the 90 car retired because of an engine issue. I'm pretty sure that was an engine issue.
Yeah, it was. And actually, I mean, that's something you have to look at as well, because Cadillac with engine issues, really last season, they were bulletproof.
That's unheard of.
Yeah, they were bulletproof last year, and they came into this race and
it's really interesting. They were bulletproof last year. This might actually be one of the first times I've seen them have an engine issue. And it's, prototype is definitely the most interesting category. For some reason, I didn't get enough action in GTD. They didn't show enough. Oh, well, the only drama really was the Land Audi. That's all we got to talk about there. GTLM, do we have to talk about GTLM? Because the Fords led all but 10 laps. And actually, at 10 laps, didn't the other Ford? Or is it just Ford combined?
No, it was Ford combined, because
Ford combined led all but 10 laps.
The 4 car, the number 4 Corvette led a couple of laps, and one of the Porsches, I believe the 911, led some laps as well. Don't quote me on that. I believe it was a 911 Porsche. But
I
I
just
mean,
know all I know for a fact is the Fords led all but 10 laps.
we can look at Ford. They had a little bit of a pace advantage, a couple tenths here and there every lap. But they, along with Corvette, pretty much had the most flawless race they could, except the
Yes.
67 did have an issue. It was something with the brakes, I believe, in the first couple hours of the race. But you look at the stint that Ryan Briscoe put in at the very end, the last stint he had, that was one of, I think, the drives to look back on in the future. You look at Antonio Garcia at Sebring, and you look at Vilander at Bathurst last year. I think you're going to be looking and remembering Briscoe's drive in the final stint at Daytona, because not only did they chase down the 66 car, they passed it, and they pulled out quite a large margin in the last hour or so. Um, and Ford did say that they underfueled the 67 car compared to the 66, so they were running quite a bit lighter. But still, you have to applaud Ryan Briscoe for the drive at the end there.
Yeah, I read an article today. It was on Racer, and they said the Corvette. It was about the Corvette. Although they had a flawless race, it was not. They still didn't have the pace of the Fords, which that's what we saw. The 3 car did have a flawless race. I'm pretty sure the 4 car did too, but did the 4 car have a flawless race? I can't remember, but I know the 3 car definitely for sure did. And Corvette said that they knew that they were going to have a pace disadvantage to the Fords. Because the thing about the Fords is they knew, Ford was fastest in the Roar. They were fastest in practice, and Corvette said when they adjusted the BOP, they pretty much knew they were going to be about 4 tenths behind, and that's what they were. So they knew what they were doing. They were really just backing on the Fords having a problem, which that's what Corvette does. Here's the thing about endurance racing is this is what Corvette said in the article, that it's pretty much what you got to know in endurance racing. Sometimes they said that they have been more successful being the slower car than the faster car, and that's what endurance racing is. That's what it's about. You
I
got 24 hours, and it just happened that the Fords ran a perfect race, and so did the Corvettes, which it's crazy, honestly. They have
I
about
think
perfect 24 hours.
the part that I found the most interesting was the pit stop differential timing on the Ford versus Corvette, because the number 66 Ford, not the 67, because they did have that issue earlier in the race, but the 66 Ford ran something around 5 minutes less in the pits than the number 3 car. So you do have to look at, and I do know for a fact that both Corvettes made 2 more pit stops than both Fords. So maybe you have to look at, tire wear, which car was better on tire wear. But, at the end of the day, it was an interesting race. And I do think that the cautions made it look like the race was further apart than it actually was compared to recent years, because you mentioned earlier the cautions. I mean, 2017 we had over 20. I don't know an exact number, but I do know we had over 20. And that's why at the very end of the race you had battles in every single class. Maybe barring PC, but you had battles in every single class because there was a caution with 20 minutes to go. And, keeping all the cars bunched up, it's pretty much inevitable that you're going to have a close finish.
It's like NASCAR sports car racing, really.
Well, I mean, without the artificial yellows, yeah.
Without the stages, man.
And the points for the yellow flags as well. I
Well,
mean,
they did get points every 6 hours, but they didn't
for
throw a
the
yellow,
Endurance
did
Cup,
they?
yeah,
Oh,
but
yeah, that's the
I
smart
mean,
way to do it, kids.
we
There
can't
you
talk
go.
about NASCAR in this though. It's
This
the
is the
Rain
rain racing
Racing
podcast. They
podcast.
don't race in the rain.
Correct. Lastly, GTD though. I mean, how much is
What to
there to talk
say?
about? The biggest thing to talk about in GTD is the land Audi penalty, which we don't have all the story words about. So
Can I just say that is still the dumbest penalty that I have ever seen in a race.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Land just say, because they were planning on a full season entry from everything we've seen. I wouldn't be surprised if they just said, yeah, you know what, maybe not a great idea anymore. Maybe we'll
Yeah,
keep our attention to
that's
Europe.
that's the thing about it, too. That might possibly ruin them another entry. To do that in the middle of the race, I just don't I don't like that at all. I I mean, if you found something and then you penalized them after the race, and you had um, the right evidence to prove that they were, cheating, or they were ahead in BOP of what they wanted, and if you could do that after the race and not in the middle of the race and ruin their chances and just change the whole complexity of the race in that class, I don't think doing it in the middle of the race was the best decision. If it was a right decision or a wrong decision, I don't think doing that in the middle of the race, I don't think that works. And it was, what was it? It was like a fueling issue. They were fueling too fast or whatever.
Yeah, I believe it was a fuel restrictor. The size of the fuel restrictor, how fast fuel goes into the car.
And what's his name? Like Peter Barron was like
Yep.
he even said that they had all IMSA checks this before the race, and they passed solid. And after the race, they passed the restrictions that they had to have. See, I don't know all about it, but he even said that they had them all. They were passed before the race cleared to go, and after the race. But it was just in the middle of the race, they were fueling faster, I guess, than what IMSA wanted them to be, or like the benchmark that they set in the BOP restrictions or whatever. Yeah, it's confusing. It sucks. It ruined Land's race where they were probably going to win, and yeah, that's about it.
I mean, like, talking about the winner in GTD, though, hats off to the number 11 Lamborghini crew. They really got the job done.
Last to first.
One of the European invasion teams coming over and proving that they have a hand in American sports car racing as well. But great job by all those drivers and the team to get that job done. They pretty much, from what I saw, ran the flawless race, and you really do have to pat them on the back for that result.
Oh, and that quote unquote, I don't even know if it was probably not even choreographed, but the choreographed finish at the end with the other Lambo.
No, I'd say that was finished. I mean, I'd say that was a little bit staged for the Lamborghini
They
social
made a
media
good picture,
profiles,
and
but yeah,
I salute them for that.
yeah. We gotta move on though. To
Now
the
going on,
next.
hey, let me do this. Now we just talked about GTD, which is a GT3 class. Now moving on to next weekend's race, a
Well, I
lot of
was gonna bring up
guys.
Fernando first.
Oh,
So how does that
Fernando?
work?
Well, then talk about Fernando. Jeez, kill my
Moving on
vibe,
from
man.
sports car racing.
See where
We
I
go
was
from
going
sports car
there?
racing to sports car racing. That's how it rolls. But I'm the director of this, and you probably shouldn't
So
try to take it
let's talk
over.
about Fernando. His car blew a tire. The
No, I'm not
Lando
talking about Fernando
Norris.
in that sense. I'm talking about WEC Fernando.
Oh, I
Yeah,
forgot that
that
happened.
Fernando. Right.
Yeah.
Alonso and WEC racing full time. Actually, full time with an asterisk next to it. In the eight Toyota TS050. That announcement came out of nowhere, pretty much. We did really see him and the possibility of him running Le Mans, but the chance of not really chance of him anymore, but the fact that he's now running at least the full 2018 part of the super season, except for Fuji because it clashes with the
I thought he was.
USGP.
I thought they said he was going to run the whole thing. I'm pretty sure. I never saw anything about him skipping Fuji.
Well, it hasn't been confirmed officially, but I'm assuming that if McLaren is going to let him even run in WEC, they're going to call the shots on what races he does and doesn't run. And unless we see any sort of massive Honda-esque era where they're just completely uncompetitive, I don't see any reason why they're going to pull him out of F1. But I mean, the only thing I saw was the ACO possibly trying to move the Japanese 6-hour race in Fuji to the same weekend as Petit Le Mans, which would allow Alonso to run at Fuji, but at the same time would screw all those drivers who want to run Petit Le Mans and run Fuji. So yeah, they got a
That's
little bit of
kind
a
of.
difficult decision. If I'm honest, they better keep it on the date it's on because
Yeah.
yeah, you shouldn't be screwing over all those other drivers who want to run Petit as well. So
Does sound like something they do with this whole.
well, yeah. I mean, that FIA bias, of course, because it's
Yeah.
FIA to an FIA series, not to IMSA, which is technically a rival. But well, we'll see
But
what happens. I mean, nobody knows what they're going to do right now, but we'll see what happens. But uh, back to the whole Alonso announcement, though, since we've gotten sidetracked twice now. He's in a competitive car, And at least right now, unless F1 schedules over Le Mans in 2019, he has two confirmed rides at Le Mans now, one for 2018 and one for 2019, in a competitive car. And
Hmm.
we do know they want to equalize the non-hybrid privateers with the hybrid Toyota. But regardless, he's still in a factory car, so he's definitely going to have a shot at the race. Um, we'll see though, because Toyota's reliability in races, especially Le Mans, has been mediocre in the past, and Alonso's reliability in the past maybe 4 years or so, 3 4 years, has been mediocre. So combine the two, and you'll see what you get.
Yeah, with Toyota Le Mans, I don't see them having any issues next year. I mean, they could, but after last year, I don't see it. I think they were way too embarrassed. Since there's no Porsche or Audi or any hybrid LMP1 teams, do you think they dial it back a little bit? Is what I'm thinking. Do you
Well, it depends
think?
how much not IMSA, WEC balances the privateers, like I said, because right now they want to make the cars equal, at least as equal as possible, and it won't be an easy task by any means because the hybrids just have so much power to put down. But I mean, it all depends. If they see at Spa, oh look at the privateers are a couple seconds back, you can dial it down a little bit. Then I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. At the same point, though, if the privateers really surprise everyone at Spa and are just running the same pace as Toyota, then Toyota really has their hands tied because there are some good privateers joining. They can't really afford to just say, yeah, we'll let them crash. We'll let them, you know, fall out of the race with some issues. They really will have their hands tied and they'll have to keep the cars dialed up.
Yeah, for sure. And the whole Fernando deal was really surprising. And the main thing I take out of it is he has two Le Mans starts to play with here, not just one. He's got two. And if he wants to do the Triple Crown, this is his best opportunity. Hopefully next year he can do Indy 500 and Le Mans the same year. That'd be pretty sweet, right? And is that the biggest surprise that he has to Le Mans, or that he's running the full season? Because I don't think anybody on Earth expected him to do the full season.
Full season for sure. Because, Lamar that was already, he said before the Rolex that there's a 50-50 chance at it. But, I mean, people were reporting back in November that he would be racing with Toyota at Le Mans. So, for sure, I think the full season announcement is a bigger surprise. And, it just so happens to work out that with the WEC Super Season, like I said, at least unless F1 schedules a race over Le Mans 2019, he has two confirmed rides at Le Mans, which is great.
Yeah, David Land was guess he was trying to say that Alonso wanted to do the full IndyCar season, but turns out he's doing the full WEC season before he does IndyCar. That's kind of ironic.
I don't
That's
think.
about
I mean, he had to have been lying because before Daytona, he said, "Oh, there's a 50-50 chance. It may happen, it may not." He knew. He knew that he was going to be racing at Le Mans because, Toyota may not have confirmed it officially, but they already knew what was coming for him with the test he had back in November, and how much he's hyped running prototypes lately. It was pretty much a given at this point. And like I said, the reports back in November, there hasn't been a day since where I've said, well, maybe that's not so true, because you just have to look at the evidence of what he's been doing lately, and it's not really a surprise whatsoever.
more F1 teams should be allowing the drivers to do what Fernando's doing, because it just helps motorsport in general all the way around. And once again, like I said in the first episode, F1. Did I say this in the first episode? I think I did. The F1 people in their little F1 bubble don't realize there's other forms of racing, and if those other forms of racing go downhill, then they're going to go downhill too. Motorsport in general, just everybody. The more see, like, the more one grows, the more other will grow on top of it. It all works in a circle, and if Alonso keeps going from F1 to place, everywhere is going to grow, and it just helps the whole automobile industry. It helps everything to have this sort of promotion, this type of marketing per se.
Maybe motorsport industry, not automobile as a whole. But
Automobile.
industry.
There's a lot of manufacturers in motorsport. I'm pretty sure motorsport has a big impact on a
Well,
lot of
yeah, but
automobiles, Chris.
it's a lot more on motorsports than just the automobile industry.
Yeah,
Because I
all
mean,
of it.
I'd say 90% of the general population won't give a flying shit that Alonso is running at Le Mans. They don't care. They don't know who he is. But yeah, maybe in
Well,
Europe a little bit more
yeah,
than
yeah,
here.
Europe.
But
Europe needs to see. Yeah, this is just American coming out of me. Europe needs to see the type of racing that we put out. Indy 500, baby.
yeah,
Rolex 24, baby.
well, yeah,
Sebring, baby.
we gotta. Oh, are you talking about races? Is that a good segue to our next topic here? Is it? Because the Bathurst 12 hours is this weekend. At least if you're
I thought
listening
my
to this.
segue was better earlier, but
It
okay.
was, but you know what? We can't. We got an order of priorities here. We gotta follow the order. Bathurst 12 hour though. This weekend, if you're listening to it when it's released, if you're in the United States, you can stream it on the Nismo TV YouTube channel.
Thank you, Nissan.
Yeah, and even though they're not even racing, they're still
They're
streaming
not?
it. No, they're not because they're working on the 2018 car.
That's garbage.
But
Don't get to see Godzilla out there.
yeah, that's true. But if you're in Europe or Asia or Australia, maybe. I'm sure Australia has it televised, but I'm not sure. I believe GT World on YouTube will be streaming it. They usually do the big GT races, but don't quote me on that. I will leave some streaming info in the description down below if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on iTunes or Google Play, because we go big time.
Big time.
Then, I don't know, look at my YouTube channel, youtube.com/c/deductiverain, and it's in the link, in the description, I should say. But
Yeah.
Bathurst 12-hour predictions, because this is always one of the biggest GT3 races of the year. It's always a fantastic race to tune into if you're a sports car racing fan. We're not going to go as far in depth as the Rolex 24 predictions.
Can I do a
but
piece of my segue because you ruined it? I'm gonna ruin what you just said. But
is this segue going to bother you for the entire episode?
yeah,
Because
man.
Then get it done.
So going from Daytona last weekend to Bathurst this weekend, we were talking about GTD, which is GT3, and a lot of drivers. Yeah, most of them run GTD. I was thinking there might be some in GTD, but most in GTD. You got guys, Christopher Mees, he was in the Land Audi, Robin Friend. Yeah, that's a prototype guy. There we go. He was with Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan. Wait. Kevin might be watching this. Joda.
Oh, it's Jota. My bad. Timo Glock. I'm just naming some names that are in this race that you might know to get you interested. Brazil. Anybody? Craig Lowndes, Shane Van Gisbergen. You might know them, but you probably not. That's more of a Bathurst kind of thing.
No, it's a supercars in general. If you're Australian, you know them.
Oh yeah. Well, if you're Australian, you know about this race already. And then if you're American and you follow IndyCar or NASCAR, Kenny Abul and Tristan Vautier will be driving the Sun Energy One Mercedes. So there's the bandwagon car immediately if anybody watches this race. Jamie Whincup is also in that
you're a
car.
supercars fan.
If you're a Supercars fan, Jamie Whincup, the OG. And then
you're a fan of in supercars, because pretty much all the supercar drivers are racing.
And then if you paid attention to IMSA, the Porsches, you have Earl Bamber, Lawrence Van Tour, Kevin Estre, Romain Dumas, Dirk Werner, and Frederick Makowiecki. So pretty much all of those guys we've seen in IMSA over the past year, I believe. So, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Or WEC.
Then you go into the other categories. The biggest name really in the other categories would be Scott McLaughlin or Matthew Brabham. Most people probably know Matthew Brabham. And so those are the guys to know. And a lot of these guys coming from Daytona last week into Bathurst this weekend. You know what this race is missing, though? Patrick Long. He usually does shit like this.
No, I thought I saw him on the entry list. I swear I did.
I didn't think I did. He'd be in a Porsche, and he's not in a Porsche.
Was he in a Pro-Am car? I swear I saw his name.
I did not. Usually he does everything, so that's weird if he's not doing it. What is he? Isn't he like the Ginger Assassin or something like that? He's Ginger something.
No, Patrick Long's racing in the number 12 competition motorsports Porsche in the Pro-Am category. I knew I saw his name.
There. Okay, so then Patrick Long. Hey, so that's my Pro-Am pick. There we go.
Well, what about your
Oh
pro
yeah, there
pick?
he
Because
is.
that's really all we're doing for this race.
Pro pick. Uh, do I go for the bandwagon car or do I go for? Oh man. Number 991 Porsche. Kevin Estre, Lawrence Van Tour, and Earl Bamber. I was so close. It was between the 37 Audi and that Team WRT, the Robin Fringe car, and the just because I like the Audis, the sound, or the Porsche, and I went with the Porsche. Just, I could go with either Porsche, really. It doesn't
Well,
matter to me, but I just like Lawrence Van Tour more than all the others.
well, shit. Because I was gonna pick that car, but now I can't. So we're gonna have to go.
Loser.
We're gonna have to go with the. Let's see what I'm gonna say. The number 43 BMW Team Schnitzer. We've got Augusto Farfus, Chad Mostert, a Supercars driver, pretty good one by the way, up there, and Marco Whitman, another pretty talented GT3 driver. So you've got the whole bunch. You got the guys who know Bathurst like Chad Muzzy, and you got the good GT3 drivers who already have done a lot of races with BMW, so they know what they're doing. And yeah, it sounds like a good pick to me.
Yeah, I just went for guys that I knew. But quick little ad. Wasn't Shane Van Gisbergen in a Mercedes last year?
Yeah, he was in the one battling at the finish with the Ferrari.
Well, cool little no. He's in a McLaren this year, so that's sweet. Him and Craig Lowndes are in a car, so I think he's going to be one to watch for this weekend, as he always is in Bathurst. Like
Who,
I've
Craig
seen.
Lowndes?
Van Gisbergen.
Oh, Van Gisbergen.
And Craig Lowndes is in the same car as him, so that's kind of like a
Oh yeah, that's Triple
that
Eight,
car's
Triple
that
Eight
car is
teammates in supercars.
another guy I missed out on that ran GTD in Daytona. Alvaro Parente. He was wasn't he in the NSX? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he came from Daytona 1 week to Australia the next. Pretty cool. That's crazy. You go from 24 hours 1 week into 12 the next. You got to be committed right there.
All the way across the world as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's gonna be enough to wrap it up for this episode. Unless you have any closing words.
No, that was actually longer than I think we wanted to.
Well, it was about 30 minutes. That's
Hopefully
good.
this is the last time we talk about Fernando in a while because it's. Oh, Fernando, you're such a news story, buddy.
Yeah.
He goes around a
We'll have
lot.
to see about that one, but I'm not so sure about an episode this coming up Monday. We'll have to see how much news there is. If not, though, it's going to be the following Monday. I already determined after just one podcast that it's not going to be a weekly thing because, surprisingly, it actually does take a lot of effort to edit these things down. And if there's not a lot of news a certain week, then I don't really see any point in doing one. So just keep in touch with the channel or subscribe to the podcast, like I said, on Google Play or iTunes. And if we do release a podcast, unless it's a situation like this week where I was sick, they will be released on a Monday. So stay tuned for those in the future. But anyways, guys, I appreciate you tuning into this Rain Race Podcast episode 2. And we'll see you in the next one.